Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode of the Four Quarters podcast powered by Four Quarters Media. I'm your host, Tyler Bennett, here with you once more. Part 2 of episode 19 in season 2 of the podcast is on tap. It's also the third audio preview day in our 2020-21 season preview series, which sees myself attempt to preview all 112 programs from across Canada. CCAA, U Sports, men's and women's. There's 112 schools, with the majority of them having both men's and women's. There's a handful, maybe 6 or 8, that have one gender or the other. But for the most part, we're looking at about 200 and probably 20-ish, 230-ish previews when this is all said and done. Like I said in part 1, when we previewed the women's program of the school we're going to touch on right now, week 1 has gone a lot smoother this time around than it did the last 2 years. Touch wood once again. Make sure we can keep this up. We got a day behind over the weekend. But again, by the time this comes out, we should be all caught up and ready to roll into week 2, which sees us do 4 CCAA programs and 4 U Sports. We'll get there. We're getting into a rhythm. We're finding a process to all of this to keep on track. I'm optimistic for the rest of the weeks. We've got 13 to go. This kicks off week 2 of a 14-week, 8 teams a week schedule. When I say it out loud like that, it makes it seem a lot more challenging than I think I anticipate this being. But we're rolling. This is school number 9 already. So we are already down to 104 schools. 103 after this one's done. Come Thursday, we will be into, or come Friday, we'll be into double digits. Hearing 99 schools left over 102, 104, 105 sounds a lot better. Makes myself think we're actually getting somewhere. We're down from 112. We're down to below 100, which bodes well. I think the last few years, I don't even think I've equaled 100 schools combined. So we're off to a good start. Touch wood, we can keep this up, keep this pace going. There's going to be some schools that get delayed. It's going to happen, waiting on roster information, what have you. We're going to adjust it on the fly as we go. But so far, so good. We only delayed one team. I think we're waiting on Capilano men's team. And even by then, that should be out by Tuesday. So we're rolling. We are rolling. Part 2 of episode 19, the reason why you are here, listening to this one right now. We're going to talk about the Grand Prairie Regional College Wolves, the men's program, coached by head coach Evan Lloyd. Coming off a year where they took a step backwards. They went 6-18 in the regular season to finish 6th in the North Division. 6-18 compared to the last 3 seasons, it's a bit of a step back. You look at 2016-17, they went 7-17, missed the playoffs by 12 points. The next year, 17-18, they went an even 500, 12-12, missed the playoffs by 4 points. Knocking on the door, didn't open for them. 2018-2019, they went 11-13, so they dropped by a win. But they were only 2 points out of a playoff spot. So again, they came back knocking. They knocked harder. Door didn't open still. They came into this year looking to continue that trajectory, continue contending for a playoff spot, took a step back. Ended up finishing 6th. Again, 6-18. They had no Peyton Terrell on the roster this year, which may have been a factor in the step back, losing a player of his caliber. Led the team in scoring with 16.9 points to go along with 6.8 rebounds back in 2018-2019 when they just missed the playoffs. He's now returning to the court in 2020-21 with the UNBC Timberwolves. We'll touch on his addition when we get to the Timberwolves preview here a little later on in the series. They started out the year 0-6, so they kind of limped into the year, struggled out of the gate. They only had one win in their first. They went 1-12, 1-11 in the first term. So they didn't really do all that well. And then, no, they'd be 1-13. Sorry, my math is wrong. They went 1-13 in the first term. They had their bye week right out of the break on Christmas. So their break was even a week longer than other schools. So they come back into the second half. They alternated wins and losses the rest of the way. In their final 10 games of the year, they'd lose the first game of back-to-back set, win the second. And they did that all 5 series in the second half of the year. So they earned splits with Keanu College, Lakeland College, Concordia University Edmonton, the King's University Eagles, and the University of Alberta Augustana. They lost the first matchup and won the second. 3 of their wins were in overtime. 4 of their wins followed double-digit losses the night before. Some of them were blowouts. Some of them weren't close, but the fact that they came back the second night and came away with those wins, huge. Character on full display. You'd love to see the fight. You'd love to see the energy. The guys not give up when they get their butts beat like they did in some games. For them to come back and bounce back and win and earn weekend splits 5 times. 5 weekends in a row. Lose the first game, win the second. And they ended the year on a win, which not many schools do. So again, another little positive to build on what was a bit of a step backwards kind of year for them. Headed into the new season, looking to kind of get back on that contend for a playoff spot trajectory they were on for the 3 previous seasons, get back to knocking on that door, playing meaningful games down the stretch, and see what happens. Just much like the women's preview we did in part 1 of episode 19, the roster speculation is rather large, a large list. You can speculate a lot of players back or not. On the men's side, at least, we do have confirmation that at least 1 player is gone and at least 6 are back for next season, which makes this a little bit easier. We do know that Liam O'Hallahan out of New Zealand is gone. He is committed to UBC Okanagan. He's gone to the U Sports ranks. He will now be a rival of former teammate Peyton Terrell. Makes that situation a little bit more interesting, especially when they go head-to-head for the first time. If that happens this year, still remains to be seen. Another little additional storyline for Grand Prairie and their fans and their program to see 2 of the better players in their recent history on full display. But replacing O'Hallahan is not going to be easy. Finished 2nd in the ACAC in scoring last year, 5th in rebounds per game, 9th in assists per game, North Division first team All-Star. Guy did it all. Did it all and then some. Averaged 16 points per game the previous season alongside Terrell as the main option this year. 23.4 points, 9.8 rebounds, 4.4 assists, shot 42.5% from the field, 31% from three, and 67% from the line. Need I say more? Don't think I do. One of the more underappreciated stars of the ACAC, I think, given the fact that he played at Grand Prairie, smaller market, smaller program, flew under the radar a bit for those outside the ACAC. Those inside the conference knew damn well who he was and what he could do. He had 19 of 20 games in double figures. He went for 48 points and 18 rebounds against King's University on February 22nd, a 194 overtime win. It was one of their 3 overtime wins and one of their bounce-back victories after a loss in the first weekend set. That's a big hole in a roster to fill. Did everything, both ends of the floor, didn't shy away from anything. Could shoot it well, effective from the floor, got his teammates involved, can rebound with the best of them. One of the best scorers in the country, let alone the ACAC. Finished second again to only Sean Michael Clancy out of Nate. I don't know how you replace a player of his caliber, but you do it on a by committee approach. You don't do it on your own, because that's not easy to fill, and to replicate and replace. It's going to take a committee. It's going to take a bit of from everybody. Everybody's got to chip in to make up that production, because that's a big chunk of change gone on both ends of the floor. But fortunately for the roster, for the Wolves, we do know that at least 6 names are back from last season, one of which is the reigning North Division Rookie of the Year, Manny Iloka, out of Vancouver, BC, the first-year 6'8" forward, averaged 12.5 points, 9 rebounds, and an assist per game, shot 53% from the floor, 30% from three, and just over 61% from the line. He did so predominantly off the bench. Saw the floor in all 24 games, but only started 3. So the North Division Rookie of the Year was a predominantly off the bench player. Fantastic. Wasted little time having an impact. He went for 12 points and 15 rebounds in his regular season debut against the aforementioned Nate Ooks. Finished the year with 10 games with double-digit rebounds. And he's only a first year. Don't be surprised if other programs come knocking on Evan Lloyd's door, ringing his phone. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a jump to a power program in the ACAC after this season, or to the U Sports ranks after this season. He's got the size, put on some muscle on him, 6'8" frame. It's a big body. And he's shown 12.5 points, 9 rebounds as a first-year player off the bench. He's now the go-to guy for the Wolves with the loss of O'Hallahan. Iloka is the guy at Grand Prairie. And if the last 2 or 3 seasons have been any indication for go-to guys at Grand Prairie, they put up good numbers. And he put up good numbers as a first year. What will he have for year 2? Who knows? But he is the guy this season. Don't be surprised if he makes a jump up next year. He's got the talent, got the size. Schools are going to come knocking. It's inevitable. And that, as a coach, it's got to mean you're doing something right. You're developing your players, helping them achieve their goals of whether it's education-based, athletics-based, whatever. You're helping them move on to the next chapter of their careers. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. But Grand Prairie released a Q&A article in the middle of July with returning men's basketball players. Manny was one of them. Darion Gorsen was one of them. You also had Bruce Betty, Brandon Lyons, Bryce Hardesty Phillips, and Tucker McLeod. So we know for sure that those 6 are back in 2020-21. After that, it's where the speculation kind of begins. We've got a handful of other key returnees, contributors that could be back, could not be. Darion Gorsen was on my list of potentially not as a second-year athlete last year. The forward of Lacrete, Alberta, 10.5 points, 7 rebounds on 39% shooting. Had 11 games in double figures, 6 of which came in the second half of the year from January 24th through to the 22nd win against TKU. Against Concordia on November 2nd, he went for 27 points and 9 rebounds, showing they can carry an offense when he gets hot. They came up on the wrong side of that equation when all was said and done. But a 27-point outing against a team that went to the gold medal game the year prior. Something to hang your hat on, and shows that he can put up big numbers against the best that the North Division has to offer. So having him back as a third-year athlete, third-year forward, gives them a veteran presence and gives them a kind of an underrated tandem with Iloka and Gorsen in the front court, combined for 23 points per game and 18 rebounds almost. 16 rebounds. Sorry, math on the spot is bad. They both shot well from the field, 40% and 53 respectively. Gives them an intriguing tandem up front. A veteran, young up-and-coming star. The 2 faces of the program next year are Gorsen and Iloka. Then you look at the backcourt. You have No Como, first-year guard, 9.5 points, 4 rebounds. Third-year guard, Jeremy Pinn, 7.5 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. First-year guard, Saxon Joyce, 6 points, 2 rebounds. The backcourt is going to be the question mark, I think. Who's going to step up and be a go-to guard? Who's going to step up and be that offensive facilitator? It's going to be a by-committee approach to kind of fill the multiple hats that O'Hallahan filled and wore last season. But someone's going to have to take a jump. Someone's going to have to take on a leadership role, a vastly expanded role in that backcourt mix to help replicate and replace this production. Replicate's a bad word. You're not going to replicate O'Hallahan. You got to find a way to make up for the loss in production. One of those guards is going to have to step up. The forwards are solid with Iloka and Gorsen. The backcourt has the biggest question mark of it all. We can also factor in their recruiting class, which is 4 names so far, which includes a pair of guards. Colton Brochu at a Grand Prairie #1 Alberta, the Peace Wapiti Academy. You have Christian Jimenez Robinson, a guard out of San Jose, California. Has some post-secondary experience at McHenry County College with the Scots. They could factor into that backcourt mix right away, especially Jimenez Robinson having some post-secondary experience, a little bit more of a veteran presence, could slot in and see some big minutes right away. Then you also add in Liam Peterson and Mason Testowich to complete that 4-man recruiting class. It'll be interesting to see how all 4 kind of slot into that Wolves rotation off the hop. We'll have a better idea when we hear more about who's back and who's not. Again, the only one confirmed for sure gone is O'Hallahan. The only ones confirmed back are Iloka, Gorsen, Bruce Betty, Brandon Lyons, Bryce Hardesty Phillips, and Tucker McLeod. The last 4 of that group, more role players than anything else. Garbage minutes kind of thing. Iloka and Gorsen are the front court faces, the faces of the program this year. They're going to see their production grow. They're going to see their roles expand even more. Iloka is going to be the guy who draws double teams at 6'8" inside. He's going to need to be more of an impact player on the glass. Give the team those second chance opportunities to get points on the board and really help the team find their rhythm, find a way to bounce back after their down year. When you look at their previous 2 seasons, knocking on the door, 4 points away from playoffs and 2, to drop down another 5 wins this year. They're going to have to find a way to bounce back. And O'Hallahan garnered a lot of the attention last year. Not having him there is going to be a big adjustment for the entire roster. They don't have that go-to fallback option who, when you need a bucket, he's your guy. Someone's going to have to step in and be that guy, especially in the backcourt. Probably going to be Cuomo. No Cuomo if he's back. Jeremy Pinn, veteran guard, maybe. But none of their backcourt rotation screams go-to offensive weapon right now. But again, speculation. Once we are confirmed to know who's back and who's not, then we can kind of piece together what the rotation may look like and say, okay, so-and-so might be option 2 behind Iloka. Gorsen's going to be option 3 inside. If Aloka's not having his game or his touch isn't there or the ball's not dropping, whatever it's going to be, a lot of questions and scenarios can be answered and figured out once we get full confirmation of who's back and who's not. But at least this kind of gives the framework for the picture, framework for the puzzle of what it's going to look like. We've basically got the box of the puzzle. We know what the picture is supposed to look like. We just don't know what pieces are inside to complete that puzzle. If that makes any sense. That was a weird kind of analogy. Kind of works, but it kind of doesn't. Because you don't have the pieces. You don't know the full pieces yet, but you know the picture. But how can you know the picture when the pieces aren't there? It didn't work as well as I hoped. But for Grand Prairie, coming off a 6-18 season that saw them take a step back in the North Division standings, they finished the year 6th out of 7 teams. 0-6 to begin the year, 1-13 in the first half of the year, but 5-5 in the second half, alternating wins and losses. Closed the year on a win. Do lose their leading scorer, first team North Division All-Star, second leading scorer in the ACAC, and Liam O'Hallahan. They do bring back at least 6 people that have been confirmed thus far to be returning for the 2020-21 season in whatever shape or form that looks like, with COVID still very much a part of our day-to-day lives and will be for quite some time, I'm sure. 4-man recruiting class of Christian Jimenez Robinson, Liam Peterson, Colton Brochu, and Mason Testowich. Head coach Evan Lloyd will be looking to guide the Wolves back up the standings. And again, do not be surprised if schools come knocking, if they haven't already, on Evan Lloyd's door about the services of Manny Iloka after this season. Bright future for that young man. 6'8" frame, 6'8" forward that can do a bit of everything on both ends of the floor. Will be the face of Grand Prairie this year. Win, lose, or otherwise, teams are coming knocking to ask about him, to see if they can meet his academic needs, academic goals, athletic dreams, athletic goals, try to bolster their front court rotation with one of the best young forwards in the ACAC. Once we get a better idea of who's back, we can say if this is going to be a playoff team or not. Still, jury's out. Still have a lot of other teams to look at in the North Division as well before we can make a playoff prediction. But they'll be hungry to build or to show that last year was a fluke and that this is a perennial playoff contending team. You can almost guarantee that they will be hungry to prove that the 2019-2020 season was indeed a fluke, and this is a team that will contend for a playoff spot year in and year out. But that wraps up part 2 of episode 19 of the Four Quarters podcast. Serves as our season preview episode for the Grand Prairie Regional College Wolves men's basketball program, again, coached by Evan Lloyd. We'll be back on Thursday, August 13th, for episode 20 of season 2, where we look at the men's and women's basketball programs for the Ryerson University Rams. But until then, I have been your host, Tyler Bennett. This has been the Four Quarters podcast powered by Four Quarters Media. Be sure to follow along online, fourquartersmedia.net, as we, again, attempt to preview each and every single team from across Canada. Follow us on Instagram, Four Quarters Media, Twitter, FQ_media. Just follow along. There's a lot to learn about the game of basketball in this country. A lot of schools, a lot of players with stories. I'm going to try and touch on every single team we can. But until we talk Thursday, I'm Tyler Bennett, and as always, continue to spread the word.